Jeremy, I'm very excited for this next panel coming up. Not only do we have Nick Spanos, but we also have Jin Chow from Binance,
Yep.
Vince Coley on the venture side of things, and Ashton Addison. This is just going to be out of control here.
I would 100% agree. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'll let you take it away and let these folks come on in.
Doing pretty good. It's a good day. We've had some excellent conversations.
Yeah, I've been following along, a lot of great discussion on NFTs. The Bad Crypto guys are working on some cool stuff. The last panel was great. This is awesome so far. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thanks for being here. We'll do intros here really quickly. Hi, Chin. So lovely to have you here, sir. Would you like to do a quick introduction to the audience?
Sure. Nice to be here, and thanks everyone for joining. My name is Jin Chow. I'm the strategy officer at Binance. Joined coming up on 2 years ago, and I guess excited to answer some questions and share my views on what's going on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. We are just going to jump right in the deep end. So the topic of this one is putting the world on notice. The crypto revolution has already begun, and there's a lot to unpack there. You guys know that I have my avalanche ready to go. So should we ever run out of things, I literally have 3 pages of what the crypto revolution means to me, what it means to the Genius Network, what Coin Genius is trying to do, what we see all of you trying to do in the industry, and quantifying it so that my grandmother can understand, right? It's a tall order. So that said, Ashton, would you like to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, thank you. Hey guys, Ashton Addison here. My YouTube channel is Crypto Coin Show. I've been running that since 2014, mainly around interviews with founders and startups and investors in the space. And I also founded Event Chain, which is a blockchain-based event ticketing platform. It's been live for about 2 years now, and we're ticketing events in 27 countries, putting the tickets on the blockchain, making sure people don't get ripped off and they can go to events and have fun, and all around enthusiast and lover of the whole blockchain space.
Awesome. And Mr. Vince Coley, would you like to do an introduction?
You're on mute, Vince.
We can't hear you yet. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Was that working?
Yes, sir.
I want to congratulate the whole Coin Intelligence team and Jeremy and everybody behind it to putting everything together. My name is Vince Coley. I'm a Silicon Valley venture capital investor, a 6X tech entrepreneur, serial business builder, tech visionary, public speaker over 19 years. And at this particular point, I do enterprise blockchain product design and co-invest at super angel investing in Silicon Valley on highly scalable blockchain, high growth industries, focused mostly on supply chain, agriculture, space tech, and patent tech. I'm a venture capital mentor maker at UC Berkeley, Stanford, and do a lot of judging events at MIT. And with the corporate venture teams, I work with Samsung and Google Ventures.
That's fantastic. We'd love to have you back for our G-Tank pitch event for the next, in our July and August events.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to get started here. So as you can see, there's a lot to unpack, and Nick Spanos should be joining us here any moment as well. I just texted him. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the avalanche of Coin Genius, and this is kind of what we see the crypto revolution as, and we're really just trying to organize the data behind that and celebrate the companies that are pretty darn phenomenal in moving this industry forward. So for me, I will say this is what the crypto revolution means to me, and then we'll let each of you kind of go, and then organic conversation from there. So for me, I've seen in the 3 years that we've come pretty darn far in terms of the fabric of space-time. As we continue moving forward, I'm seeing technology develop in front of my eyes, very Darwinian. We see exchanges like Binance, we see Kraken and BitMEX and Wobi and Gemini. And if you can't trade on them, there's this thing called Brave and Tor. You should do your own research. Speaking of research, you can go to Thinkorswim or Investopedia to get trading information. We'll be aggregating that later. You should be checking out crypto ATMs and wallets and digital identity and token projects and blockchain projects and regulation and yield farming and data science and AI. And that everything's gone virtual, and that our crypto world, the folks that are here, it's not like the rest of the world. Like, these are people that really have the passion to help foster real change in the entire world. So that's what the crypto revolution means to me. Ashton, I'm going to pick on you first, actually.
Great. Yeah. I've been involved with this revolution since Bitcoin was about $200. My father actually introduced me to Ethereum at the time of the Ethereum ICO, and I was so excited about it. And I just saw so much potential in how it was going to change the world. And diving into it every day, realizing that it wasn't going to be an overnight shift, right? Ethereum sat around $10 to $15 for a few years while people are trying to figure out how this is going to specifically be implemented. How will we implement the revolution? And I think that there's so many cool things that are coming out, and we always think, okay, this next big thing, is it the futures? Is it CME? This is going to be the thing that makes the revolution come to the mainstream. And I'm really seeing it now after running a startup for a few years, that this industry really is like, like a startup. It's like a 10-year overnight success, or in this case, it could be 15 or 20 years, right? And we may soon, hopefully, start implementing security token exchanges and have more mainstream trading of security tokens and be moving more towards the mainstream each day. But I feel like it's just, there's not one single thing that's going to make the switch happen overnight. There will be certain things that help accelerate it, but all of these things are little green tick boxes that are making our way towards this revolution. And I'm excited about all of these things. Even just this week with the PayPal news, potentially with 325 million customers, 7-Eleven, CVS implementing Bitcoin, all of these little things are adding up. And it's still super exciting, for me 6 years later to be here. So I think that this revolution it's not an overnight thing, but it's something that I'm excited about every day.
I love it. Thanks, Ashton. Jen, what can you tell us from like the regulation side of the revolution?
Sure. I guess on that front, I would say the landscape has changed pretty dramatically over the last couple of years, going from sort of a stance of relatively dismissive, maybe 3-4 years ago, to a couple years ago with the tail end of a pretty large bull run. Recognizing the potential and I guess a lot of regulators looking at the cons or the danger of this. But it was pretty clear then that there was no sort of standard template. And as we sit today, I think there's a lot more clarity, particularly coming out of North America and Europe. And then the rest of the world at least is taking a clear position, whether or not the actual regulations instilled or enforced country by country are there. They're at least having dialogues with us, and we're fairly clear on the direction, at least, that they're going through in the moment. That said, there's still a number of areas that are pretty unregulated, and then there are still a number of generally gray areas where there's been some statements, but there's no actual policy in place. So it's made for both pros and cons. We've seen this help adoption in some areas. I would say India is one area that has been a bit of a question mark. And there were, as you know, there were some, court outcomes that were then overturned, and that's helped actually accelerate activity there. And I think we'll continue to see that, the leading regulators we think are still going to be what we see coming out of the US and probably out of Europe, particularly Germany. And that's where we'll see the more developed financial systems follow. And I think, to Ashton's point, we are sort of heading down this path of seeing more security assets being tokenized and accepted. But it's in varied stages. I think Ashton's right in saying that it's still very, very early on. We're at less than 1% global adoption. If I make an analogy to, I used to be an internet investment banker back in '99, so I'm pretty long tooth in my career, but I can see these analogies. And we are where the internet was in the mid '90s, right? So we're starting to get some decent email adoption, but we're not quite at search or e-commerce or mobile and all these things. So that tipping point is still probably another cycle away, and what triggers that cycle could very well be more regulatory, but it'll be some kind of a confluence of mainstream industry adoption, not necessarily the mom and pop, like my parents adopting this, but it'll be companies that are realizing the value and starting to adopt it, and then that will drive, I think, regulation more in a positive direction.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I'm excited to ask a few more questions around your concept of the revolution, but we're going to pivot really quick to Vince. Vince, what does the crypto revolution mean to you from an investment standpoint? You're at the heart of seeing really promising deals come through. You're seeing the challenges. I mean, what does all of this mean to you, and what have you seen kind of change over the last few years? Oh, you're on mute again.
So I'm primarily involved in this crypto so-called space since 2013. Before I go forward, I want to be make some disclaimer here that I may make some forward-looking information within the meaning of applicable securities law, and forward-looking information includes but not limited to the rate of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology adoption and resultant effect of the growth of the global cryptocurrency and tokens market capitalization. And this is important to make sure that I'm not making any recommendations to buy or sell securities. This is just for information and entertainment purposes only. So coming back to your question. So the reason I was successful, I would give you an example, is whether it's crypto or whether it's traditional securities, is a mindset. So I was involved in Wall Street since 2008. So I'll give you two perfect examples of how I think about investments. So I still remember the day when Obama was speaking and Bank of America was trading at 30, and after that meeting went to 24, and overnight went to 18, and eventually it went to $1.08. So my grandfather was born in 1905. Bank of America, I think, was introduced in 1903. So that was my logic to buy Bank of America. So trading is one thing, but then looking at the perspective for long term, like Warren Buffett says. So one of the things, what he did was Bank of America, he bought when it was $13. But however, he bought billions and he made 13 billion in 90 days. So what I'm trying to tell in simple is crypto or anything is a mindset. When I say mindset, it's like, how can you become an early stage investor? So crypto is all about thinking forward, having an equity piece for yourself, and actually not betting, but really making yourself as a part of community, but as a whole, as a part of real thinking about being an investor. So I call it these things at computer software program. If you look at blockchain enables, everything has to be enabled. Like the food we eat enables our brains. So anything and everything is enabled by something, and here the something is technology. So when cryptocurrencies become the investment, we're actually investing in a piece of software. So that is a shift of thinking. If we are not taking anything more than a piece, like when you make investments in your house or equity. So this is a piece of software. If you look at Uber, is a piece of software which has $1 billion in evaluation. So these are certain things of, when you think of not trading, but investments, and how can you make a further look investments? And of course, you have a huge return on those things. So thank you for asking the question.
Thank you, Vince. Ashton, I'm going to be right with you, but Jen, do you mind telling us from Binance, I mean, what you're allowed to say publicly, and also how you feel personally being in this space? What do you see in the future? Where can you see that we're going? You guys are deep on the global scale, literally tied into the trading side of the global economic engine. You guys are by far the biggest presence in crypto Twitter. We've done the metrics. So I'm just curious, like, what's on your roadmap and what can people expect? Assume that everyone knows everything about Binance. Like, tell us the juicy details, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the basics. I think our mission is pretty clear, and we've stated publicly over and over again, as well as privately. We are about the freedom of money, and that was a catalyst for me joining at my stage in my career. And the background I was coming from, I come from sort of a traditional, management consulting, investment banking, private equity, corporate development for MNCs like Dell and the MBA. To make the shift over was really in line with what Binance is trying to do. And that's really expand the ecosystem and increase adoption to the point where we can really reduce some of the frictions and resources that are put in place in the financial system, whether it's trade finance, whether it's remittances, whether it's central bank monetary policy. These are all things, and then the blockchain technology on top of the crypto can solve a lot of things like taxes, auditing, things like that. So these are all resources that are in our system that create a lot of friction and human capital that can be put to much, much better use. No offense to accountants and lawyers out there. And so that is in personal alignment with my overall view of the world, frankly. And so that was what's so compelling with Binance, and because the team really is striving towards that vision, understanding that Binance is a very, very small piece of that. And where we are now, I think it's been pretty clear. If you look at our history, we grew up through the spot trading on crypto to crypto, and then our priority right now is to increase access from fiat to crypto. So a lot of effort is now being spent on developing fiat on-ramps. You've been seeing probably a lot of announcements or a lot of things sort of turned on recently to enable this. I can't get into specifics, but I would say that, sort of we have teams exploring all corners of the world. And, as we have in the past, we don't necessarily have priorities based on here's how large the market potential is, but it's more of here's how welcoming this market and these regulators will be towards us. And that obviously directly informs how welcoming banks are to crypto. And so there are some pretty obvious areas to hit first, and then there are some pretty obvious channels that are sort of more lower hanging fruit. But what we're trying to do is get to the point where we can work directly with partners that will reduce those fees down to the bare minimum, and then attract those users to bring fiat into crypto. So that's the first step, is the on-ramps. And then I think what we'll see down the road, 5 years, 10 years from now, is that the exchange business will again be just a small piece of providing liquidity and price discovery, but not the main use of crypto. Hopefully there'll be a lot of offboarding that can be done as far as just day-to-day payments, day-to-day transactions. Hopefully you won't even need a contract to buy a house someday. It can all just be done on the blockchain through whatever cryptocurrency people are using.
And I would agree. And for the folks that understand that, that means all of that can be done with a click of a button. Thank you so much, Jim. I'd like to pivot over to Mr. Nick Spanos. And for those of you that don't know, Nick started one of the first Bitcoin exchanges, like physical exchanges in New York. And he also works in about 1,100 different avenues in the industry right now, including crypto ATMs and some other things that I'm not sure if I can talk about. So Mr. Nick Spanos, can you tell us from your perspective, after being in the industry for so long, what does the crypto revolution mean to you?
Oh, well, the crypto revolution means everything. I mean, when I found out about it, I kind of threw my whole life away and went strictly crypto. And yeah, we opened up the first, rented 6,000 square feet in 2013 next to the New York Stock Exchange on the ground floor, retail level, and opened up my own exchange there where people came and traded live pit trading, and that was fun. And I think onboarding is everything. I don't know. I wish I never learned about it. I want to eat a steak again, like Cypher on The Matrix. But no. Took the red pill and have to continue in this battle for decentralization. And I got a fire truck or something come by here. Or probably an ambulance. I'm in New York City. So,
Awesome.
I think it's everything. Without, I mean, we're very lucky to live in this moment in time where we have an ability to free ourselves finally from levels of centralization that we've grown so accustomed to over years and years and decades and uh, uh, centuries and millennia of centralization imposed upon people. I think with Bitcoin, we finally have the ability to free ourselves from these controls and liberate ourselves. And I believe that if we don't do this, if we don't uh, do that, you know, if we don't free ourselves with a decentralized permissionless blockchain, we're probably going to be, imprisoned and enslaved by the centralized, permissioned data silos and whatever they want to call blockchain.
Right.
So this is the only time that we have. I think everyone has to jump in and do their part, or else we're going to be in trouble.
Thank you, Nick. Ashton, I'd like to pick on you. You've kind of seen the trading landscape for a while now. You've seen some evolution. You've seen some revolution. There's still a long way to go. When it comes to the on-ramps that Jen and Nick are talking about, and Vince, recognizes as well, what I've heard is that it's mostly, so long as you have like a Visa MasterCard, you're in KYC AML compliance like around the globe. So we still have to kind of play with the existing infrastructure, but we can kind of see the doors becoming more open now. So Ashton, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people still don't know and understand, your everyday person who's not really into finance, know that there are already so many Bitcoin ATMs around the world and service providers like Binance and, retailers where you can get access to Bitcoin. And one of the first Bitcoin ATMs in the world is actually just a couple blocks away from me. And I've used it before, and it's been there for 6 years. But a lot of people don't really know, or more than that, almost eight years or so. A lot of people don't even know that you can get it, right? And there's still sort of that education gap, I guess. But what I'm really excited about is, it's great to have a numbers game and have more individuals getting involved. But I think where the acceleration is really going to happen is when the banks get involved and more importantly the stock market and the trading volume of the cryptocurrency industry can more equate to the regular regulated stock markets, right? Because right now it's really just a penny in terms of even just the market cap of gold, which is way smaller than the stock market is Bitcoin is a penny compared to that. So we got to get to gold, and then we got to get to what the stock market is in the derivatives market. And I think that's sort of what's going to be happening throughout the 2020s and the 2030s is going to be way more accelerated than the first 20 years of this century. We were just sort of warming up. And, this paradigm shift that we're going through right now since the beginning of this year, I think is going to be a catalyst for the next 2 or 3 years where some big changes will definitely be coming. And this paradigm shift where people are waking up to, we're able to hold money that we can control ourselves, and we are in control of our own lives, right? And we get to do what we want with our funds and transmit them. Just on the cryptocurrency side, people are waking up to that more and more, and I'm seeing it. Being in the space, a lot of people reach out to me that don't know about it, and they're like, "Hey, man, I think it's time that I took the red pill and learned about this." So I'm seeing that more and more now, and it's very exciting.
That's awesome. And Nick's over there going, "Don't do it, no." So
well, it does consume your life, right? We breathe blockchain and cryptocurrency every day, but we enjoy it, right? And part of it is because the market never turns off. So there's all those memes about reading, seeing blockchain in your dreams, but it's sort of true. So
for sure. So I really love that it's disrupting the trading status quo. I love that it's disrupting the banking status quo with peer-to-peer currencies. I would love to not have a middleman and have to pay fees at all of those extra layers. Vince, you see a lot of things in the startup world of up and coming. What else do you see blockchain disrupting? Because the crypto revolution is just a tiny small piece of the overall, blockchain disruption. I think we haven't really even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. What do you see in your day-to-day?
Right. So I have actually get involved with blockchain in at least 58 different industries in the last 6 years. But just for the sake of audience who are listening to us, I really want to know what is a core purpose. See, whenever you invent something, there has to be a core purpose. So the core purpose of cryptocurrencies is relatively very, very simple, which basically means leverage technology to eliminate middlemen, as you mentioned, in the financial transaction, and making buying and selling things less costly and more efficient. In the same way, when you order Uber through a machine. So through the blockchain, the people have to understand it's a decentralized public ledger which actually takes the transactions and is consistency across the whole network. So that consistency gives people a confidence that nobody will be able to edit or and also leverage the whole network for the update. That sounds like a mouthful, but it's not, because traditional currencies need bigger banks to oversee and verify. It's all about verification, which cryptocurrencies do not. So once we really understand what we're leveraging, what is a core differentiation, and what traditional currencies do or do not do with cryptocurrencies, and that breakthrough literally happened in a medical science space, in the med devices space. People need to understand. So it comes with a decentralized thinking that not everything is controlled by somebody else, and you have the say to that. So again, it's a mindset, right? How do we mindset the whole thing? So in answer to your question, it's banking, it's agriculture, it's like if you know the J coin and the JP Morgan started, agriculture is big thing, Vegas is doing it. So they're the core of industries which really want authenticity about the food security, like with IBM blockchain. Those people have suddenly have the breakthrough to say that, okay, it is not only associated with cryptocurrencies, but it's more than that. And that's where I think the whole investment portfolio, if you look at the Bitcoin on March 12th, I call it Black Thursday because it dipped 50%. It was almost trading at 3,000. But if you look at the traditional scope of how the market has moved in the last 90 days, even the Bitcoin has moved along. So people have now started gaining that confidence. And I think this will leverage more breakthrough in more than, I've identified 58 industries, but that will take a long time to talk. But if anybody's interested, I can talk more on why those 58 industries have been identified, including space.
I would love to have that conversation. Thanks, Vince.
Thank you.
So there's still a lot to unpack here, but we are about down to about 10 minutes. I would still love to hear a bit more from Nick. Nick, what can you tell us just in terms of crypto revolution, where you think we're going?
I think adoption is happening more and more so, and especially now with all the different central banks around the world overprinting and stuff. Many countries, small ones probably, are gonna lose the value of their currency, and people are gonna jump on Bitcoin. And I think it's gonna grow up. I mean, Bitcoin's gonna get that many more people, and then all these analysts and all these others who think that Bitcoin is a stock will wake up a little more and realize that it's much, much more than anything they've ever seen before, and then they're going to get the bug. And I think it's an inevitable, incredible future that we're going to roll into, especially when governments use blockchain for currency. It's going to be that much easier to buy Bitcoin when they have their blockchain, quote unquote, blockchain currency. The people will be able to buy even more Bitcoin even faster. So I believe that we're gonna, it's happening, it happened much faster than anyone thought already. So I think it's gonna happen even faster now. $6 trillion plus, and everyone had all this time to sit around and think in their houses. And I think a lot of the mindset out there, minds have been freed, and they're realizing that governments, might not have their best intention, the best intention of the people behind what they're doing. And then let's see. I think we're on the right path, and let's see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. Jin Chao, would you mind telling us a little bit from a Binance Exchange standpoint, when you start talking about tokens that can be listed on Binance, which CoinGenius considers like top tier, there's you guys, and there's a short list. So we'll give you guys all those metrics. From an exchange standpoint, with this inflation of, I think it's $7 trillion here, and we see that exchanges are going to have to exist for this 24/7 marketplace that's happening because money moves around 24/7. What are your thoughts on the revolution of exchanges?
Okay. Well, I would say over the past year, we've seen a little more decoupling from token valuations, right? So if you looked a year and a half ago, all ships were sort of going up and down in sync relatively. And then starting probably about a year ago, you saw a little bit more discrepancy. And I think it's both a good and a bad sign. It's a good sign in that I think people are starting to do a little more homework in individual projects, understanding them a little bit better before they're deploying their capital. But then on the other hand, there is a little bit more divergence on market cap, and that does impact liquidity. And so you sort of get somewhat of an unfortunate downward spiral for some of the smaller cap coins, and perhaps maybe an unfair upward spiral for others. But I think that will dissipate once, as Vince mentioned, there's more money flowing in and more users coming in. So that's sort of the overall goal. We do want to support these projects that perhaps will take a little while. There are sort of a chain of dependencies on some of them, right? So if you have a scaling project that's dependent on layer 2 adoption, layer 2 adoption is dependent on DApp adoption, and these are all sort of expectations that the market had differently a year ago versus today. Those are some sort of kind of microeconomic trends that you'll see. But on the macro side, I think we are heading in the right direction. We are in an environment right now that's pretty ideal for attracting more users. But I do think it's a little more nuanced than that from one region to another, because like I said, if you look at the actual user, we're still not even at the early mass adopters, and much less, again, I'll point to my parents as laggards. Once they're using crypto, everybody's using crypto, and that's a pretty far off future, I think, at the moment. So we still need to see a few things happen that will trigger sort of what I call this early mass and get us closer to a tipping point, which I hope we're looking at, hopefully single-digit years away. Because once that happens, then things happen very, very quickly after that. So we saw in 2017 in that bull market an order of magnitude adoption during that 1 year period. So if that happens again, we'll see another order of magnitude, and then that'll sort of set things off. The big question, I think, is when that will happen. And my guess is as good as anybody else's, but I will say that it's probably more going to be reliant on, again, a perfect storm of external factors.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree. And I would say that we're definitely seeing the sentiment for the overall crypto market definitely start to change, and people take it more seriously. Wall Street and institutional money is taking it more seriously. So there's definitely a lot of potential still. It's still a very nascent industry, right? Even those of us that understand our little subject matter expert corners we still have to kind of compare notes. And that's part of what the Genius Network is all about. But I'd love to invite you guys back to join us on our Genius Wednesday calls. That's our weekly market analysis. And we talk about a lot of these things. As a matter of fact, the only reason I know these things is because I've listened to them talk about it for about a year and a half now. And we have over 8 months of historical calls going through crypto winter and going through the slide, which we predicted early, which was just phenomenal. And I'm glad that I have it on record. So I'd love to have you guys come and be a part of all of that. So we are about 5 minutes away. I'd love to hear your last thoughts, just kind of a quick roundtable from all 4 of you. Out to the CoinGenius audience, who could be anyone from Wall Street to all streets. they're crypto curious. They want to understand what crypto is. And when we say the crypto revolution, if you guys could just give your final closing thoughts on the things that we should definitely be telling our audience here. And I will let you guys choose your own order. That's a terrible plan. I'm going to pick on Ashton.
All right, pick on me. Yeah, you know what? I think, to make it short and sweet, a lot of people say, you know, the best time to buy Bitcoin was 10 years ago. And obviously the next best time to buy is today. And as we said at the beginning of this discussion, there's no, single event that's going to make Bitcoin rise. And if you're somebody who's interested in the space and you're interested in the future and getting involved in, how the world is going to be evolving, then don't wait until you see Bitcoin rise up and, you buy in at the top and you're finally in. Today is the day that you should be getting involved and learning about this technology. And I'm sure people are already interested if they're watching this stream, but just get further involved in it and see if you can help other people out. And every day, the liquidity seems to be increasing, the onboarding, Binance is doing a great job with CoinMarketCap, showing the liquidity, getting more people involved, having more other coins, having fiat trading pairs, and decoupling from Bitcoin so that these ecosystems can start growing themselves. And it's such an exciting time that don't waste any time. Today is the day to start getting involved, and the earlier you get involved, the happier that I think you'll be.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashton. We're going to run out of time. So Vince, you're up next. Your final thoughts, sir.
Well, I totally agree with Ashton that this was the time. If you look at 90 days back, it's 3,000, it's threefold. Thank you, Jin, for mentioning in previous comment. I really like the Nick comment about involvement of government. If you look at in Asia, what post-pandemic and during pandemic has taught us that blockchain and the currencies, actually the whole donation in Asia is through blockchain. So for your audience, I just want to be simple, like too simple. So I'm going to leave the three things. First is the mindset, which basically means you are now an early stage investor. So think like an investor. Second is a perspective. You are investing in a computer software, a piece of software, like a software is a new oil for 21st century. And this is the most valuable computer program you're investing in. And the last but not the least, think of an asset, or go back to 11th grade economic class where it was a demand and supply. And if you think that's what Bitcoin is actually at the halving movement, which started at 2012, double at 2016, and today this is 2020. So if you really want to be a new economy and a part of new economic growth, this is it. Discover the next Microsoft and Uber today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Mr. Nick Spanos, your final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, it went up early, of course, but there's only a limited amount. There's only 18 million now, and by the year 2140, there's going to be 21 million, and everything else out there is not as scarce. There's no scarcity in the currency, that's for sure. We just saw that just recently, and I think as you learn more, take 30 days of intense study, and you'll learn a lot about Bitcoin, and hopefully, you jump in if you'd like. If not, that's okay too. But it's much, much more than a currency, because it's actually a vehicle for personal freedom and freedom of your children. And I believe that the more you demand of it, the supply and demand, the more you demand, the more good things will be supplied. So you have to get involved, learn everything you can, tell your friends, and keep it going, because keep the word out there going, of course. It's going to get out there anyway, but what happens is some people get involved in like these Ponzi schemes or something, I don't know, well, they try to steal your Bitcoin, and that has nothing to do with us. And I think that's one of the biggest problems out there, is that you get people get involved in the wrong projects because they haven't been educated, and then all of a sudden, they have a negative perspective on Bitcoin, and the negative news comes out on Bitcoin and stuff. But Bitcoin is cash. It's cash for the internet, and no one blamed the cash for the bank's Billy the Kid rob. And You know, there's a lot of people out there that don't want us to succeed, but these people are the ones that have incredible connections to the already, you know, the legacy financial system. So of course they don't want us to succeed. And it's the people's money. Actually, it's actually the people's money. Sounds like a cliche, but it actually is. And get involved, learn about it. And don't buy anything for 30 days. Just study for 30 days every day.
Thanks, Nick. And Jen, your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I agree with all the comments that are mentioned before. I think the only other thing is, you know, what level do you want to get in? There's guys like me and people at financing that at any given day, depending on how the market's doing, 50 to 80% of our net worth is tied up in this. And so it depends on where you are in the stage of life and, you know, how much of a believer. But I do think, as Nick says, do your homework, understand what you're becoming a part of. But I think invariably that will lead to you wanting to get involved. And then, you know, come in and buy. There's plenty of channels once you sort of dig around a little bit. Of course, Binance is happy to serve you as long as you're not in an OFAC country. Yeah, I think, again, I've made predictions in the past, and I've learned not to do that. But I do think that, you know, you can take a look at the 10-year history of Bitcoin. It's pretty clear that we're not even into our fourth cycle. So when you see a 50% adjustment in Bitcoin, that's not a full cycle. That's the type of volatility that we've been used to in the early days. I do think that level of volatility will continue to decline. Obviously, as users come in and market caps and volumes go up, and you will see a stability there. And then it becomes much more viable as its primary use case, which is as a currency. And again, I do think that we're going to see these fundamental changes happen within single-digit years. So I think, you know, hopefully for the audience, that's in everyone's lifetime. Yeah. So yeah, it would be a shame to miss out.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you for bringing Binance to the Genius Network and sharing the stage with these folks. Ashton, thank you for being here. Vince, can't wait to talk with you about a whole bunch of things at the VIP party. Nick, lovely to see you as always. I do hope that you guys will join us for the VIP party tonight. That is going to go from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific. Tomorrow morning is the 8 a.m. VIP networking breakfast, and then we turn on the cameras at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So for those of you folks out there, if you haven't gotten your VIP ticket, go get it so that you can come in and chat with these folks. It's hard to talk to everyone, but we're definitely going to give it our best shot here. So thank you, all of you, for being here and providing this insight. CoinGenius is very excited to bring these solutions out to everyone.
Christina, can I make a request to take a group selfie? If everybody can come.
Let me get off.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll take a screenshot and send you guys. Is that okay?
I would love that.
Okay. So 1, 2, and I'm hitting the button. Thank you. One more. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Vince.
Thank you, everybody.
Really great chatting with you. I can't wait for follow-up conversations.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Yet another incredible panel. You know, I'm biased, obviously, because this is the event our company's throwing, but really high quality content, incredible speakers. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it, and hope you guys can join us.